Martin Roscoe is one of the UK's most beloved and respected pianists. Renowned for his versatility at the keyboard, Martin is equally at home in concerto, recital, and chamber performances. He's in Winnipeg, participating in the latter, one of the distinguished cast of performers in the Agassiz Chamber Music Festival lineup. Martin Roscoe joins me in the Diamond Lane on this Tuesday afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Simon. Very nice to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you back in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
You were last year for Agassiz, correct?
Last year, yes. Yeah, an immediate re-invitation, which is very gratifying.
Hotly anticipated, one might say.
Yeah.
So before we get to this festival lineup, I was wondering if we could just go back before this illustrious career began. I was wondering, what was the catalyst? What inspired you to take the piano?
Right. Well, when I was 6, I started piano lessons, and I've got 2 older brothers, and they were already having lessons with the same teacher, and she decided quite rapidly that I was the least talented of the 3. And shortly after that, maybe 6 months into having lessons, the whole family went to London and we went to see a prom. And I was so blown away by the sound and the sight of the orchestra playing the Berlioz Symphonie Fantastique with Sir Malcolm Sargent conducting. And I was just 7 years old, with bar a few weeks, plus a few weeks. And when I got back to Merseyside, they couldn't keep me off the piano. And the rest is history, as they say. I sort of changed teacher eventually, and then one thing led to another. And people often ask me, when did I decide to become a pianist? But I don't think I decided. It decided for me that I would become a pianist.
I've heard you recount that story before, and what I think is so remarkable is that now you've gone on to perform on the prom stage, seven times, something like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's right.
It's like watching a soccer or a football match, I suppose, and then all of a sudden you're playing on the World Cup stage. I mean, it's a remarkable story. It really is.
Well, I'm sure it's not unique, but at the same time, I mean, that was a big moment for me the first time I actually played at the proms, and I went down the night before and watched the previous evening's prom from the approximate seat that I sat in when I was 7 years old, so you get a similar view,
Oh, man.
It's an amazing place to play, I have to say.
I can only imagine. I've always wanted to go to a proms concert. I mean, you can watch them online, which is great. So in looking through your discography, which is, of course, prolific, I think what is amazing is the variety, from solo piano to piano soloist, from J.S. Bach to George Lloyd. Many pianists find a niche and stick to it, whereas you've kind of explored it all.
I've done a lot of sort of the byways of the repertoire. I've just finished recording my final volume of Dochnagny's piano works, and playing Dochnagny with some of the players on Friday night, actually, the quintet. Szymanowski I've done, Nielsen, but I've also recorded all the Beethoven sonatas, and I'm now in the process of doing a series of Schubert recordings as well.
Oh, really? I think, what is there a challenge that comes with that? I mean, in exploring such a vast repertoire, whereas living at home in one particular era? I mean, many pianists enjoy exploring, but to record so prolifically.
I don't know, just sort of the opportunities have arisen, and, people have said, what would you like to record, but you can't record Beethoven. And then eventually a man said to me, I'd love you to record Beethoven on my label. So, these things sort of happen, and there's no plan to it as such. Well, I've been very fortunate to be able to make so many discs.
Yeah, totally. You mentioned the Dochnagny, and it's a rather crude question, I suppose, but why Dochnagny?
Well, I think he's a fantastic composer who doesn't get aired so much. I mean, there's a few pieces that one hears fairly regularly. The Variations on a Nursery Song with orchestra, which is a stunning piece, actually, and very humorous. It's not necessarily the most profound music, but it's very well put together and attractive, and very beautiful. There's a lot of very beautiful music which you just never hear, and I thought it would be great to try and do it all.
And you really have explored it all, from his solo piano works to his chamber works to his concerto works. It's great. I mean, I only discovered his music when I started to work here, doing an undergrad degree. He's one of those composers where you go, And the name sounds so familiar. It'd be remiss of me to not ask, have you ever worked with Christoph von Dochnagny?
I have. He conducted my very first prom.
He's
the grandson of the composer. Yeah.
Oh, wow. It's amazing how that all comes together.
I don't think he's particularly interested in his grandfather's music. I got that impression.
Oh, really?
Well, I don't think he's recorded any of it.
Yeah.
Not that there is a huge amount of orchestral music, but there is some stuff. But anyway, no, I mean, he's another great musician, obviously. Yeah.
So you also mentioned that you are going to be performing some of his chamber music. You're here for the Agassiz Chamber Music Festival. this is a work that you've recorded before, you know very well.
Yeah.
I want to ask about some of the other works. What are the highlights for you in this week's festival?
We're doing the Messiaen Quartet for the End of Time tomorrow night, which is one of the very greatest of all chamber works. And with the inspiration, it was written in a prisoner of war camp when Messiaen was captured when he was in the army in the first year of the Second War. And he was released actually long before the war ended. I think he was very fortunate in that respect. But he was already a fairly well-established, up-and-coming young composer, and he decided to write this quartet for clarinet, violin, cello, and piano, because those were the instruments that were available in the camp and the players.
And it was premiered by them.
It was, in the camp, to the prisoners. But the inspiration behind it, which, there isn't time really to go into it to such a great extent, but it's basically about the end of time, the end of the world. And that might sound bleak, but it's got its very powerful, frightening sides to it as a piece. But there's also an incredible piece in several, and especially the last movement, which is just violin and piano on its own. An amazing part for the clarinet as well. So it's a piece which regularly blows audiences away. I mean, I've played it a few times all over the world now, and you always get that tremendous atmosphere, and at the end a sort of stunned silence. Actually, the audience seem afraid to applaud because they're so moved by what's happened.
It is profound music. That is the word that regularly comes up when speaking about it.
That's right.
Last week I had the opportunity to chat with Paul Marlane. He popped into the studio, and he mentioned that you and he performed it in London not too long ago.
It wasn't quite in London. It was in the UK. At my festival in Yorkshire, actually. Yeah, we did play it there with James Campbell, Jim, as everyone calls him. So it seemed. I mean, it wasn't my idea at all. Paul runs this festival, and he just said, "Oh, let's do that again." So
when did you and Paul first meet?
Well, he was briefly, for about 5 or 6 years. He was the principal cellist in the Liverpool Philharmonic, and I've always lived in the north, and I've had a particularly strong relationship with that orchestra. And in '92, I was playing the Tchaikovsky concerto, and there was this young man just taking up his chair on the principal cellist's desk, and it was very funny. We often joke about it because there's a little cello solo in the Tchaikovsky concerto in the second movement, and at the break, the first thing he ever said to me was, "Oh, Martin, you know that little solo of mine? You think you could play a bit quieter so that, my solo could come through?" Which other people might have taken offence, but he did it with such charm, and I saw his point. So and we have a good laugh about that. But we've been in touch ever since. Yeah. And he's been in Canada for 20 odd years now. But he's invited me to Agassiz a few times before, but for various reasons I've been unable to come. And last year I thought this was the time when he invited me again. So.
And here you are back again.
Yes.
Yesterday, Stéphane Lemalin was in the studio, and I know you had the chance to chat yesterday. We were talking off the air. One of the questions I asked him was, as part of this festival lineup, if he has the opportunity to also not only perform, but to be an audience member. Do you get the chance to sit back a little bit?
Yes. The one caveat I have is that I don't like to listen to something as a member of the audience if I'm about to play in the same concert. Yeah. So, for example, last night, the concert, I played the Janacek Pahanka with Paul, and the first item was James Campbell and Stefan playing the Bernstein Sonata, so I didn't sit in for that. But after I played with Paul, I sat in for the rest of the concert, which I hugely enjoyed, including a wonderful performance of the Brahms Clarinet Quintet.
Totally. And are you going to have the chance later in the week as well to take in the Bach?
I'm going to hear Carl tonight. I think Carl's a fantastic player. I mean, I worked with him just in one short piece last year, and I thought, this guy's really terrific.
Yeah, we're lucky to have him here.
I think so. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to that immensely. It's a huge challenge, but I'm really delighted that Paul and the Agassiz Festival are giving him the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, it is truly a landmark type of event.
Absolutely.
That way. Yeah. So I guess lastly, just to conclude, in all the performing that you do, as we mentioned earlier with solo recitals or with concerti, what is it about chamber music that you enjoy most?
Right. I mean, people, often ask me what's the difference, and I can sum it up now because I've been asked so often. Concertos are the most exciting because you're on the stage with a lot of other people, and usually it's a sort of exchange between the full orchestra and the pianist. You've only often got half an hour or maybe a bit long to play. It's the most challenging in a sense, certainly in terms of stress. Solo recital is the most demanding because you've got to hold the whole audience for the entire evening, but it's also the most satisfying, I would say. But for pure enjoyment, you can't beat chamber music because you've got the exchange of ideas, and you have your rehearsals, you get everything organised. You know, when you come in to play, people can say to you, "Oh, could you play a bit louder there, Martin?" Or "Could you play a bit softer?" or a bit slower, or whatever. But at the end of the day, once you go out there in front of the audience, there's a sort of frisson between the players, which is tremendously inspirational often. Somebody does something and you really respond to it. Or you suddenly have an idea and you feel them respond to it. And there's a sort of electric charge in the atmosphere.
Oh, I mean, and you can feel that as an audience member as well. You can feel that interchange going on and that electricity in that spark. Yeah. Martin Roscoe, thanks for coming by the Classic 107 studio. Oh, it's truly a pleasure to have you here. You can see Martin Roscoe performing as part of the Agassiz Chamber Music Festival lineup. It runs from Saturday, June 9th through Friday, June 15th. For more information, visit agassizfestival.com or head to classic107.com and click on the events tab.